Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new series, Game Tier Weekend, where I will explore great games that you can play across the industry. Now, I'm going to try to do this every weekend moving forward, and that starts off with Xbox Game Pass. I mean, it's been no secret that there's been a lot of conversation this year around Xbox Game Pass and whether or not it's still worth the price. You know, it has gone up in price significantly. In order to get a full year subscription with a monthly plan, it now costs $360 a year. Yeah, I don't think that's exactly the $360 that fans have been asking Xbox to go back to. Despite the sticker shock, though, when I started to dive into the situation, I discovered something very interesting. The thing is that if you actually look at the games that they released into Game Pass this past year, both in terms of price and quality, Game Pass is still arguably worth it, even at that increased price tag. Now, some of that will depend on your taste in games and how many games that you play, but we're going to talk about 12 different games that they released into Game Pass this past 12 months that still makes the subscription worth it after all. In fact, the total price for just the 12 games that we're about ready to talk about would have cost $690 brand new without a subscription. So even at the increased price, that is still $330 worth of savings. So with that said, let's just go and jump right into the list. First of which is Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3+4. These are games that I grew up with back during the GameCube era, and they were some of my favorite games at that point in time. Well, their remakes debuted at $50, and it's every bit as good as fans have hyped up the originals to be. These are known as some of the greatest extreme sports games ever made, and for a very good reason. I mean, they're zany, they're amusing, and really they're just a blast to play with their arcade-like nature. They don't really make a lot of games like this anymore in today's world, but it doesn't really matter because Tony Hawk 3+4 stands the test of time with its new shiny coat of paint. Now, another game that stands out is one of Obsidian's new AAA RPGs. This is one of the most legendary RPG studios around, and they recently released a spin-off to the Pillars of Eternity series, but here's the thing, with a completely new perspective. Instead of the Dungeons and Dragons-like gameplay, they instead morphed Avowed into an Elder Scrolls-like experience, but with some of the better combat that we've seen from a first-person action RPG. You can dual-wield a number of different weapons, which makes its combat both compelling and addictive. Now, its colorful world does feel a bit different than Pillars of Eternity. That was one of its biggest criticisms early on, but it is still an overall good-looking world in my opinion, and it does do a good job of putting the player in the shoes of their character. The narrative does emphasize player agency through choice and consequence. This game, though, did launch as $70, but again, with Game Pass, you would have gotten to play it at a much cheaper price. And speaking of Obsidian, it's been a very, very busy year for them. They also launched The Outer Worlds 2 directly into Game Pass, and this is yet another $70 AAA RPG. However, while Avowed is often compared to Bethesda's Elder Scrolls, The Outer Worlds 2 is more so compared to the Fallout series, and I'd say that is actually a perfect fit for Obsidian. Interestingly, they created the fan-favorite Fallout New Vegas. And while a lot of fans are still hopeful that they'll eventually make a sequel for that game, especially now that both Bethesda and Obsidian are under the same umbrella. But regardless, in the meantime, we do have The Outer Worlds 2. It's an immersive sci-fi RPG that has all of the flair and personality that made New Vegas so beloved in the first place. Its humor and player agency are once again big selling points. Now, you would think that I would be done talking about Obsidian, but no, because again, it's been a very, very busy time for them, which includes a sequel to the breakout hit Grounded. Back in 2022, a small team from Obsidian launched a passion project that, quite honestly, a lot of people didn't believe in. The assumption was that it's not going to be very popular, but on the contrary, it launched to an insane amount of success back in 2022, and so much so that Xbox greenlit a sequel for Obsidian to one-up themselves. Well, right now, Grounded 2 is currently in early access and also available in Xbox Game Pass, which will save you $30. So if you like survival games, not only are you going to get a great one, but it also has that special Obsidian blend, their RPG expertise. Moving on though, one of my top 3 favorite games of all time is the original Gears of War. I mean, I can't even describe what the original game means to me all of these years later. I mean, there's just so many memories of late nights playing Gears of War with my friends that I will never, ever forget. Without a doubt, Gears of War is a special game, and Gears of War Reloaded, once again, has proven that. This is a remake that brings all of that nostalgia back, both in terms of its single player and its multiplayer. A lot of modern-day developers have kind of forgotten how to make games that have both a good single-player and multiplayer, but that's another reason that Gears of War Reloaded is so great. Whether you want to play competitively, cooperatively, or by yourself, Gears Reloaded has you covered. The thing about Gears, however, is that after all of these years, there still really is no other game out there that feels quite like it. It's a very unique third-person shooter, and it's one of the main reasons that its multiplayer has always been so beloved. The entire movement system is crafted in such a way that has an incredibly high ceiling for competitive play. Without a doubt, though, Gears of War is still incredibly fun, even in the modern era. Now, another series that made a big return this past year was Ninja Gaiden. I mean, this truly was the year of the ninja with 3 new entries, which is actually kind of crazy to think about. We went for what felt like an eternity without the Ninja Gaiden series, yet here we are with 3 new titles, 2 of which launched directly into Xbox Game Pass. The first being Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which is a remake of the original 2008 release. And my goodness, what an incredible return. Visually, it looks fantastic, and in my opinion, it still goes down as one of the better action games that you can play, but do be prepared. Ninja Gaiden is well known for offering a steep challenge, and that still remains the case here. Maybe you want more than just a remake, though, and well, if you do, they also launched the first brand new numbered Ninja Gaiden game that we've gotten in over a decade, being Ninja Gaiden 4. Now, Xbox surprisingly published this title, which is why it's in Game Pass. However, its launch was kind of bittersweet, because on one side, it's a game that fans have been begging for such a long time. But sadly, its launch came right after the passing of the series' creator, Tomonobu Itagaki. So its release does harbor some extra weight too, and I want to give him a big shout out. But all in all, its execution is everything that you would hope for from a Ninja Gaiden game. It's stylish, it's challenging, and it's just a blast to play. Now, don't expect it to have the best story in the world. Ninja Gaiden has never really been known for that, but if you want a good action game, there's really not much better that you can play. Now, speaking of difficult games, I'm going to go ahead and throw in a bonus game being Hollow Knight Silksong. Now, the reason for that is because technically you can buy it cheaper without subscribing to Game Pass, but with that said, if you are subscribed, it's just kind of available, and it's truly one of the best games that you can play. I mean, if anything else, it finally made its debut. There were myths that this was never going to happen, but after years and years worth of waiting, it actually met its lofty expectations, which is not an easy thing to do for a game that was as anticipated as Silksong. But there is a reason that it was so sought after in the first place. Hollow Knight to this day is arguably a top 3 Metroidvania of all time. It's really one of the most influential independent games ever made as well. And Silksong is every bit as good as Hollow Knight, and maybe even better depending on who you ask. It's dark, it's challenging, it's the Soulsborne of Metroidvanias, and yes, it's a must-play for anybody who enjoys a challenge or this genre as a whole. Now again, it is the cheapest game on this list, which is why it's a bonus. It only goes for $20, but like I said, it's also one of the best in terms of quality. Now the next game here is the only game on this list that didn't directly launch into Game Pass day one, but with that said, it came into the service shortly after, and it's arguably one of the best JRPGs to launch this generation, being Metaphor ReFantazio. This is a new IP from Atlus, though to be fair, it might be a bit of a stretch to call it a new IP. It's very similar to their Shin Megami Tensei and Persona franchises, but with more of a fantasy setting. It is, however, a classic Atlus game through and through, though with some new wrinkles added in, like its loosely action-based elements. Other than that, though, it has everything that you'd want in an Atlus game. It's turn-based combat, the beloved characters, and their superb storytelling. It's all here, and it's just a must-play for fans of Atlus games and also for fans of JRPGs. Oh, and one of the most influential first-person shooters of all time got a new installment. Doom: The Dark Ages is the latest addition to the fast-paced boomer shooter, but that's kind of the thing. We don't really get a lot of these type of games anymore, or at least in this fashion. There are some smaller games, but Doom is one of the only truly AAA games within this genre. And while I don't know if it's the best entry for the new trilogy, it however is still a blast to play as you would expect. Its new shield adds a new wrinkle to its gameplay, and the thing about Doom is that it's almost this perfect blend of power combined with precision. Again, truly, these are thrilling games, and Doom: The Dark Ages is no different. And since we're talking about first-person shooters, we might as well go and talk about the game that kind of caused the price hike for Game Pass in the first place. Yeah, Call of Duty. And I'll be honest, I haven't been a huge fan of this series since back during the Xbox 360 days, but there's no doubt about it. It's still one of the most popular franchises to this day, and if you think about it, it's kind of crazy that it's even a part of Game Pass, much less a day one title. So if anything else, Game Pass has kind of become the go-to place for Call of Duty on consoles. Not only is the brand new Black Ops 7 available, but if you want, older Call of Duty games are available as well. And then on top of that, of course, Game Pass also comes with an online subscription, which you kind of need to play Call of Duty's multiplayer. All right, now this next game was one of my favorite games growing up. Yes, a world that I completely got lost in, the all-time great Oblivion. Well, now it has a remake and, well, it's kind of a mess if I'm being completely honest. There are some technical issues for the new Oblivion remake, but with that said, it's still super fun to play. The thing about Bethesda RPGs is that they have this way of just absorbing you into their world. I mean, anytime that I think about Fallout, Oblivion, or Skyrim, one of the first things that I always remember is how I got sidetracked and just played hours upon hours of doing side missions or adventuring into places that I probably shouldn't have been in the first place. Their worlds just feel alive, and they just know how to immerse you into them, and that's all here in the remake. I just kind of hope that they eventually get it patched up completely because it's really a game that deserves the absolute best. All right, now let's go and talk about the final game that makes Xbox Game Pass worth it, and that is the incredible Game of the Year worthy Expedition 33. I mean, this honestly might go down as one of the greatest JRPGs of all time. That is how good this game is. It's the perfect blend of emotional, atmospheric, it has beautiful music, it has fantastically written characters, it can be humorous at times, and the combat itself is possibly the best I've ever seen for this genre. I mean, this combat is interactive, and we've seen other games do that before. There's, of course, Paper Mario. There's Lost Odyssey, which this game's actually heavily inspired by. There's Bug Fables, Sea of Stars, and the list goes on and on and on. But Expedition 33 evolved that style of combat and truly took it to the next level. Like, I really cannot say enough good things about this game. It's not only one of the best Game Pass games that you can play, but quite honestly, it's really just one of the best games that you can play, period. So please, whether you have Game Pass or if you don't, go play Expedition 33 right now. It's truly amazing, and it is absolutely worth it in every possible way. So there you go. The question of if Game Pass is worth it, I think is actually a very interesting question. And just from my own perspective, while I don't think that it's necessarily as attractive as it once was, it still very much is worth it if you play a lot of games. Now, if you only play a few games a year, or if you only care about a few games on this list, then it's probably not going to be worth it for you. But if you play a lot of games, then you can still easily make it worth it, as I highlighted with these 12 different games, or technically 13, that all released in the Game Pass these past 12 months. Let me hear what you think about all this, though. Do you think Game Pass is worth it or not? Till next time, though, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.